All right, you need to turn to page 7. Looks like this. And it will start with Japan embraces the West. All right. So Japan, what do we know about Japan? Not a whole lot. But what do we know? And you can look at this picture up here, and it will tell you something. Japan is what? An island. Actually, it's made up of thousands of little different islands. They have 4 main ones. But it is an island nation. And that means a couple of things. When you are an island, where do you get your stuff from? You get it from boats or trading, right? You have to trade or else you will die. Okay? So Japan needs to trade with people. Because if they don't, they cannot produce all the things that they need on the island. Okay? So this is going to be, again, a different kind of trading. Or, excuse me, a different kind of imperialism than what we saw in China, and definitely from what we saw in Africa. Now, did Japan like to trade with people in Europe or the United States? No. Again, they are like China in that respect. They didn't like trading with them. So, who did Japan trade with? Most likely Asian countries at the time. All right. So, in the mid to late 1800s, again, Japan is very behind the 8 ball in terms of factory production and producing things. They're still in the old system with an emperor and a shogun and samurai and the peasants and the merchants and all that kind of stuff. They're still producing on small little farms and going on that way. They have an emperor. Now, if we can remember back, we do know a couple of other things about Japan. How much power does the emperor have in Japan? Actually, they don't have a lot of governmental or political power. They do have this sort of idea that they are above humans. That the emperor is close, again, in their Shinto religion, to a half-god or so. The real person with the power is the shogun. Not shotgun, I didn't mix that up. It's shogun. Okay? And the shogun has all of the political power. Europeans and America want to trade with Japan pretty badly. But the Japanese, like we said, they do not want to trade with Europe. They do not want any stuff from there. Again, it is un-Japanese-like. They can produce whatever they need themselves. So they say, no. Simple as that. So we have our beginning part of our new Japanese story. In a long-standing diplomatic and sort of forced way, America, the United States, is going to open the Japanese door. What does that mean? They're going to open Japan to trade. A man by the name of Matthew Perry. He was a Commodore, which basically means that he was a very, very influential person in the American Navy. He leads a fleet of ships and forces his way into Tokyo. Tokyo, the capital of Japan, capital city of Japan, and demands, he talks to the shogun and the emperor and he says, you better trade with us, or else. And he threatens violence on Japan. Now, with America, the United States. So, what do we know about the army in Japan at the time? Around 1853. Are they very strong? No, why not? What do they use as weapons? Samurai swords. Now, are they very skilled with those swords? Absolutely. Absolutely. But it's a dying art because guess what the Americans or the Europeans have? Guns. They have guns. Doesn't matter how well you can train with a sword. If you're standing 15 feet away, that's not going to help you with a gun, right? The old adage that you bring a sword or a gun, sword to a gunfight, not going to work out for you. So the Japanese sort of relent. The shogun, again, the guy with the actual political power, saw what happened in China. Remember, during the Opium Wars, saw that the Europeans could come in and kick some butt, and did not want the same thing to happen in Japan. So they are going to agree again to these unequal treaties. And unequal just means that it's not fair. They want to avoid war with America. But Japan does something a little bit different. Because Japan, like China, is a very, very proud nation. Very proud people. They really believe in what they teach. And the fact that the shogun, this guy here, would have to give way to another country, especially a Western country with different religion, different values, things like that, was a huge, huge thing. But it's in order to avoid war. They see that they are very behind in terms of production and all that kind of stuff. They had not industrialized like a lot of European nations. So what's going to happen after this? After 1853, after America opens the door, they are going to learn from Americans and other European nations on how to industrialize. And Japan, unlike China, is going to industrialize extremely quickly in a matter of about 40 or 50 years. And they are going to become a world power. However, it comes back to bite us in the butt. Because by the time that Japan becomes a very, very strong nation, guess what they don't forget? They don't forget this instance. And they don't forget that America forced them to do something that they didn't want to do. And guess what happens on the morning of December 7th, 1941? The Japanese attack a military base on American soil, thus bringing America into World War II. But we will get there another day. So, let's take a look at this guy down here. What would you say... Let me see how I'm trying to say this. What would you say this guy's importance is? Why is he important? Not this guy here. I'm talking about this guy right here. The Japanese fellow. What importance does he have? What does it look like he's wearing? Alright, he might be wearing a samurai robe. Kind of looks like pajamas. I mean, that's okay. That's okay. Right? But he is a soldier. He is a soldier because he is a samurai, very proud. But this picture shows, again, who is more sophisticated? The Americans, right? That's what this picture is showing. Obviously an American viewpoint of the whole dealings that's going on. But if we look at this picture, is that guy sophisticated now? Yeah. Yes. In the terms of, because he's got regular military gear on. So this shows after Commodore Perry leaves Japan, after they've opened the door, and after they've gotten through at least the beginning stages of industrialization. So what's going to happen in Japan is that they don't want America there anymore. So they're going to rapidly industrialize. Yes. And they create this new government called the Meiji. And the Meiji are a group of political advisors or political group that take power from the shogun. Because remember, the shogun was the one who allowed America in the first place. And they made you say, no, we don't want you anymore. And this is known as what's called the Meiji Restoration, because they're restoring Japan to its glory. But they do have to change some things. And that's what I was talking about. Those changes in the government, in the economy, and in everyday life. And Japan is going to be strong at one time. These reform movements, specifically, are going to improve education. It's going to westernize education, strengthen the economy by industrializing and creating railroads and things like the post office. So this helps Japan significantly. Again, making them stronger, faster at production, and making them like Western nations, talking about Europe and the United States. Again, learning from the Americans, taking what they knew and translating it into what they could do themselves. Now, Japan, before they start attacking places like America, like they will in 1941, they're going to take a look at things a little bit closer. And guess what country that Japan is going to go after first? What's really, really close to Japan? China. Because remember, did China do all this kind of stuff? No. China says, you know what? We don't need to do that stuff because we are the greatest nation in the world. It doesn't matter that they make stuff way faster. It doesn't matter that they have guns. It doesn't matter that they have cool things like railroad. We don't need to do any of that because China is the middle kingdom. China is the best nation that's out there. But guess what? Japan, by 1890, is going to be an extremely strong nation. They're going to equal powers in Europe and the United States. And Japan takes up imperialism in Asia. Now again, I'm going to use Leslie's wonderful definition of imperialism. They're going to start taking over land in different places in Asia. Specifically, China. You got those two? So here's Japan, again, an island nation. They go into war with both China and Russia in two very, very quick wars. Bless you. Bless you. They're going to become the main power in Asia. Japan, again, going through rapid industrialization, making things very quickly, making guns, building up their military, building up their education system. They set up different powers in Taiwan, Korea, and China. Now they are going to go into war with Russia, but it's not going to be to take over Russia. It's going to be to take over different parts of Asia. So they're telling Russia, hey, get out of here. We want to take over here instead. So in 40 years, in less than 40 years, Japan goes from a nation that could be extremely weak and taken over by America very quickly without a war, to a nation that is going to start taking over places like Korea, parts of China, and Taiwan. Okay. Again, making their empire, the Japanese empire, even stronger and bigger. Questions on that? I think we're moving on to India. Nope, not yet. Yes. Okay. So, we've now talked about China. We've talked about Japan. We have one Asian country left, and that is India. Now, India is going to be, again, very different from that of China and Japan. It's going to be a different kind of imperialism. So Great Britain is going to be the only player in India. They're going to move in and take over, but purely in an economic sense. They bring in the East India Company. Now, this company has roots even in America, because the British East India Company moves into America, again, purely for economic reasons, way back in the 1700s, before America gained its independence. And the British East India Company gains control of India in 1757, and they stay in control for about 100 years until 1858. So, India is known, and I want you to take a look at this, as the jewel in the crown. Now, the crown means what? Who do you think the crown symbolizes? The king or the queen in what country? Not in India, but who's taking over them? Great Britain. So we're talking about Great Britain is the crown, but the jewel is India. Okay? The jewel is India in that, you know, Great Britain has made and created this great empire all around the world, including places like America, definitely in Africa. But what puts the topping or the icing on the cake is India. That's what it means. The jewel of the crown is India. The British East India Company has its own army led by British officials and sepoy soldiers. Now, these sepoy soldiers are Indian, right? Not Native American, but people from India. Okay. I've lost the marker that Mrs. Wallace. Oh, there it is. So we have. I don't need to write anything down yet. Yes. Now, move on. India, right? India, the country in Asia, provides the British, right? Again, the crown, with all these raw materials, all this stuff that the British want. Again, because India is their colony. Okay? That's what I said. And becomes their most important, and that's why they're called the jewel. This is sort of the icing on the cake. So again, this company, like a business, owns India. It's not necessarily the king and the queen. It's a little bit different. They have their own army, but it's led mostly by these sepoys, or sepoys. Okay? So that means they have British leaders, and most of the soldiers are going to be Indian. So the jewel is India. So what's going to happen? Something called the Sepoy Rebellion or the Sepoy Mutiny. Now, this is a big word. Mutiny. And what is a mutiny? Has anybody ever heard that before? You may have... what? It's a lot more violent and a lot further than that, but you're on the right track. Crazy, yes. But what is crazy, Kate? Yes, there it is. So a mutiny is a rebellion. Yes, a rebellion against your leader. Now, Katie, how did you know that word? Mutiny. What movie? Probably Pirates of the Caribbean. Pirates of the Caribbean talks about mutiny because they're going to take over Jack Sparrow, you know, all that kind of funny stuff. But a mutiny is a rebellion from within your own company. So by 1850, the Sepoy soldiers, remember the soldiers from India in this British sort of thing, resent them because they're racist and they push Christianity on them. Now, India, let's get that World One knowledge working. Let's dust off some of that rust. What religion, primarily, is in India? Yes, Hinduism. Very good. And Hinduism is completely different from Christianity. Completely different in many respects. Most namely, that Hinduism is a polytheistic religion. Polytheistic means what? You believe in more than one God. Christianity, you just believe in one. Okay? There are definitely many other differences, but that is the most quintessential of those. So they're pushing Christianity. The British are pushing Christianity on these soldiers, right? They don't like it. And also, going against one of their religious beliefs, is that rumors get spread that the bullet cartridges are greased with beef and pork fat. Now, why does that matter? What does that even matter? Who cares? Why is that such a big deal to the Indian soldiers? Oh, I'll tell you what. Why do the Indian soldiers care that their cartridges are greased with beef and pork fat? What does that matter? Well, sort of. Specifically, pork and beef, because in Hinduism, cows are a very sacred animal, right? And pork, depending on what branch, if you use a Christian term, what branch of Hinduism don't eat pork either. So this is against their religion. And again, with the forcing of that, they don't like it. You know, not good. Not good at all. So what's going to happen? Last page. So we have the Raj, or the Indian National Congress. Again, we have Indian soldiers taking over within the army, sort of fighting against the British. So what happens? The British respond to this mutiny, respond to this rebellion by taking direct control of India. It doesn't help. It only leads to greater distrust between the Indians and the British. But what happens is India gets this idea of nationalism. And again, when you have nationalistic feelings, what are you more able to do? When America has its strong nationalistic ties, what can we do? Or what did we do? Say around 1776. What did we do? In 1776, what did the Americans do when the British were controlling them? Won their freedom, yes. When you have nationalism, you can kick out the stronger country. All right, any questions on India, the Sepoy Mutiny? Any questions on Japan or China?